obviously, anybody who's ever watched a video will know that I'm a huge Queen fan. And it all came from my father. I mean, I was very lucky. I grew up in a, I grew up relatively poor, to be quite frank, but it didn't matter because my dad and my parents in general were like huge arts fans. Like they loved painting, music. You know, my father was an artist, he was a painter. And so we had a house full of like creativity. And so that's pretty freaking awesome. I can't complain about that. But I will tell you, it was Christmas a long time ago, and I was a little kid. I always say too young to be, you know, to know this. But I was a little kid, not even a tweenie. You know, I think I was 7, and my father gave me a night at the opera, and all I'd ever heard is classical music and opera at that point. It was just he would listen to opera. I'd even been to Covent Garden by then, and experienced opera and classical music, and he gave me this album and just said, this is worthy. like you're allowed to listen to this. And it's because that that Christmas in England, Bohemian Rhapsody was the #1 song. It was #1 for 9 weeks. It was a massive smash, and everybody was obsessed with it. It had all of the things that we love. It was a big, powerful rock song.
Yeah.
It also had all these operatic moments and just incredible production, incredible performances, and great songwriting and like everything. So, I mean, what an incredible baptism of fire for your first pop music experience as a tiny little kid to be that. And that's how it all started. I cannot. And to be honest, it's, you know, for Queen, it's been absolutely fantastic over the last 2 or 3 years since the movie came out, just to see all of these closet Queen fans climb out now and be like, it's okay to be a Queen fan. You know what I mean?
I do.
Really, you know what I mean?
I love Queen. I've loved Queen my whole life. I got Queen on vinyl, so.
Me too.
I've been there from the beginning. I'm like 50, so I've been there for quite a while.
But you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
you know, there was a time. Now. Yeah, it's like it's hip, and it's like, okay. I mean, but you know, I've been doing videos now for 5 coming on 6 years, and from the very first video, I said I'm a Queen fan and talked about it before it was, you know, hip. But no, they're an incredible band, and what an amazing way. So, and of course, the great thing about hearing, you know, living in a world of classical music, and a handful of the best rock musicians, like it was Queen. ELO were another band I got really into. I remember buying Out of the Blue when I was a little kid. And all of these albums had amazing production as well as incredible songwriting. So even though I went through a massive phase of being into punk rock, you know, I got into, you know, during the 80s when I'm like a teenager, it was all, you know, the Smiths, I'm a huge fan of, obviously. I was into Joy Division. I was into like lots of other like less rock bands. But everything I've always loved has always been songs and production. So it was an easy move for me, I think, to become, you know, I think to become an engineer and then a producer, a songwriter, you know, after being a guitar player. And the other thing I always say is the great thing about falling in love passionately with music prepubescent is that your motivation is the music. You know, I know a lot of kids, you know, at school at 15 were like, hey, I'm into bands and stuff because they're discovering girls and things, and it's all part of being cool. And I was already obsessed. You know, I had 400 albums by the time I was 13. You know, tons of albums. I had posters all over the wall. I had taken the Queen logo and created a stencil. And I got gold spray paint. I don't know why we had gold spray paint, but there was some in my dad's garage. And I went in there and sprayed Queen all over the walls. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's a blessing. I think it's a blessing to fall in love with music super early. And so there was never really a difficulty of a transition from sort of being a performer into being, you know, an engineer or a producer, because it's just I'm in touch and in contact with music. And but I was signed in bands up until 32. I was at 32. That was my 5th record deal at that point, and I toured, I played, everywhere. Played Reading Rock Festival. I toured America a bunch of times. I toured Europe a bunch of times. I played a bunch of big festivals. Had an absolutely fantastic time. Had some, modicum of success. Had a chart hit in England with a band called Star 69 back in 95, 96. There was just some great times. It was, I've been blessed. And then, of course, as a guitar player, I've got to work on people's albums and play guitar on stuff, sometimes uncredited. When you're working in a band, I'm just fixing or replaying parts. It's just part of what you do. Sometimes credited. Then I've had some really cool credits. I remember I did 3 Ace Frehley records, and on one of Ace's records, we had Slash and Ace do a dueling solos, like on the couch, which is over there. And it was a cover of Emerald by Thin Lizzy. Yep. And then, Ace had to go off on the road, and he went off and did some shows, and he calls me up and he goes, Warren, I can't figure out the frickin', I haven't got time to do the harmony part. You do it. So I just did that for, so I did that part. It's very like kind of Spinal Tap, that moment. If you remember that harmony part. So I did it and, sent it to him, and he really enjoyed it. And, so the album comes out, and it's like, first of all, it's a cover of one of my favorite bands, Thin Lizzy, So right. It's Thin Lizzy, Emerald, has the musicians listed, guitars, Ace Frehley, Slash, and Warren Huart. I mean,
you don't get better than that.
Yeah, you don't get better than that. If you could think of being like a 15-year-old kid, being a rock guitar fan, and somebody was going to say to you, Sean, in 30 years time, you're going to be on a record with these two like rock superstars, you'd be like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So my journey's just, lots of different things. I ran studios, was an engineer in home and independent studios, had rehearsal rooms, built businesses. I've done A&R, managed bands. Done a lot.
How'd you transition from like full on touring musician to just doing studio? Did you decide it was enough, or it was just like?
Well, I was always doing both because I actually was like, for instance, like Louise Goffin's a very, very old friend of mine. And I met her as an engineer in 1989. We were trying to figure it out the other day. And I was like super young, and I was engineering and doing part-time engineering work at a local studio that was run by some friends of mine, sets of brothers. And I engineered a session with her and Gail Dorsey, Gail, who's David Bowie's bass player, was David Bowie's bass player. And Andy Jackson was the producer, who's obviously Pink Floyd and all that kind of good stuff. So that was like a baptism of fire. I'm like, I just ended up assisting him, of course, because he's an accomplished producer and engineer. So I just became the assistant on that gig. But, so I was doing that and playing in bands. So it was always the two things. I'm definitely one of these personalities that if I'm not incredibly busy, then I think I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, you are incredibly busy. Your schedule is just insane.
But I like that.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's just it's crazy. I'm like, how do you even see anybody?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I say this all the time. I mean, obviously, it's family and work, and all of my friends are the people I work with.
Yeah.
And today I'm working with Jamie Humphries, who's an incredible guitar player. Yep. He was Brian's guitar player. Playing Brian May. He was I think he was the lead guitar player. I think the MD as well in Queen Extravaganza. And he's played with everybody, and he's a great.
He's good.
Yeah.
I've been watching him.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy, and he told me that. So today, sorry, I'll cut long story short, we're doing a cover of Let Me Entertain You, and I get up in the morning with my daughter, make her some breakfast, she's 6, she's watching Garfield, he's calling me on Skype, I'm talking about, I'm trying to do a cover of Turn It On Again, and there's something weird about the tuning, about how Mike does it, and we think that Mike dropped the top E down to D. Anyway, so we're talking about that, and then he's talking about the solo on "Let Me Entertain You," how it does this dive bomb, and it's like, did they slow down the tape? We're thinking, did they slow down the tape, or did he actually do it with the tremolo, with the whammy bar? And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, what a great life. You know what I mean? I my whole life is like my wife, my kids, and music. Pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome. You don't feel like you're working because you're just doing what you love.
Yeah, it can be a lot of work, as you know. Anything we love can definitely be a lot of work. But I think what I'm trying to say and what I believe is that I've got a day filled full of incredibly interesting and rewarding things.
You literally have so many fresh ideas in your shows.
Well, thank you ever so much.
Obviously, I'm a fan, so I mean, it's just incredible. I'm like, I don't feel like he's ever repeating himself.
Yeah, it's very difficult sometimes, I think, for your viewers watching this. It is very difficult sometimes with some of the mixing technique stuff because, I've seen videos that I've done reappear on other channels and people do my version of that. And we've obviously done videos that coincide with others. And there's a certain degree of that. Now, what I'm concentrating on is, because we have a wealth of information, I'm concentrating on showcasing how great songs were recorded, talking about the recording techniques that were behind them, and just, showing off my love of music. I've also been blessed, to have a couple of people like Mark Daniel Nilsson, who's really talented, come in and do videos every now and then. So I want to keep doing the 5 videos a week, but every other week we might have somebody else showing their techniques, because there's a million different ways to do the same job and to get great results. So I think it's really just a case of, and it's not called Warren's Place. It's not called, my name's not in the title, yeah, it's not my name. And so for me, it's about connecting people and doing something that's really much bigger than myself. And I think it's a blessing to be able to do this. I mean,
I think your topics lately have been really good. When you do the breakdown of the songs, that's probably like my favorite, because I'm a total dork like that. I love it, especially the Chrissy Hine one. I mean,
huge fan. Yeah.
Yeah, any of that. I mean, and then that and the live breakdowns, I think, is the 2 favorites. Like today you had. Those are so, because both of them are really hands-on and practical. So you'll hear the songs, you can use it, you'll be like, oh, I get that now. Or you can watch it and you get tips. You know what I mean? Those are
interesting, because we were being asked about guitar sounds the other day, and I'm looking over here and I've got a Vox AC100 head. I've got one of Eddie's personal, amps that he gave us.
Yeah.
We got Eric's Mesa Boogie. We got an Engel, which is beautiful. We've got a couple of Marshalls, a Laney, of course, big Tony Iommi fan. And when we got small amps, we got the Baby Marshall, a Rhodey, which is great, Carl Martin, a Pro Junior. But what we end up using 99.9% of the time is the Fender Deluxe Reverb, the Tone Master, which is the modeling amp version. And it just sounds really, really good. And it's really easy to use.
People argue about that. The modeling amps, about modeling online. That's like a rabbit hole. If you go online and look up a question about it, like I was looking up a question, there's like so many boards. I had to close it. I'm like, I'll figure this out myself. I think it's just, I love it.
Yeah. All right. You rock. Thanks, Sean. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.